Hello, my name is Luke Gray, and the movie I'll be focusing on is Gladiator by Riley Scott. This film is an action, adventure, and drama, focusing on the disasters and controversies that are handled by the protagonist known as the Spaniard, the Gladiator, or more formally known Maximus Decimus Meridius. This film was directed by Riley Scott, who focused on some aspects that made this film what it is. Something that helped him determine its genre is the development of the early primary conflict and the quick exposure of Maximus's character. To drag in the audience rapidly, Riley decided to put much action in the beginning, a war scene. In this opening, Marcus Aurelius is the emperor, which Maximus serves under as he is top general. This scene is shown with some gruesome images and sword fighting, but in turn shows the expressive skills of Maximus. After establishing this action portion of it, a drama is enabled due to the early main conflict of the death of the emperor by his son. Commodus strangles his father to death in order to place the crown on himself before it was relinquished to Maximus. Along with that, Commodus sends him to exile and kills his family, the beginning of the dramatic development of the film. Maximus's goal is to free his men and to be reunited with his family, which can only be achieved through his death. The image of his death is recurred throughout the movie as he passes through the fields and is caressing the plants as he approaches his family further on the path. This film's ability to intertwine these different genres proves why it won 5 awards, including Best Picture. This film was immensely influenced by the sword and sandal genre, such as The Fall of the Roman Empire and Spartacus. In these movies, each protagonist has a position in relation to the throne, both dealing with the father of another. Overall, in these films, they all contain a protagonist that's main goal is to better Rome and serve the wants of the people. What we can infer about its creator, Riley Scott, is that he is big on action and adventure movies. Some of his other films include Aliens and Black Hawk Down, which are very filled with action. This idea very well suits his life, as he was raised in an army family and joined as a Navy merchant when he was young. Also, he was born to a royal family in England, which is why he may be so familiar with the high status in places such as Rome, where Gladiator had taken place. This film shares a lot of similarities to his other films because I've noticed that he always manages to find a very good antagonist. They come in different forms, but they all dominate the films, are the main cause of the problems to the protagonist, and challenges their character the most. Many similar approaches that Riley Scott has in all his films is that he usually gets close up in all the action. Most of his fighting scenes are emotional and intense because they are pulled in so tight. Another approach that Riley Scott uses for his film that is widely known is his pieces and comfortability with his actors. He allows them a lot of freedom and takes their suggestions into consideration. He is also very focused on atmospheric lighting, which is closely demonstrated in Gladiator when Commodus looks through his window and sees the beautiful horizon. Riley Scott is an amazing director who has made some brilliant films. Riley Scott shot this film in the DreamWorks studio as well as Shepperton Studios for specific reasons dealing with actors helping their development. This film was released in 2000, yet it was influenced by 1960 films. There isn't any political background during this film to help it influence it. Scott Riley thought that since the new millennium was embarking, that he would reflect on the past through this film. This film did extremely well for its time. The film was made in time for the 73rd Academy Awards and blew its opponents away. It won 5 awards: Best Picture, Best Actor for Maximus, Russell Crowe, Best Visual Effects, Best Costume Design, and Best Sound. It also won many awards in the Golden Globe Awards as well as the BAFTA Awards. This film led to the Gladiator effect, as named by New York Times, that led to the upbringing and interest in Roman and classical history. This film ended up making among the top of the year 2000. In the U.S., it made a total of over $187 million, $457,640,427 throughout the world. Gladiator is a film that attempts to portray the life of ancient Rome. In this movie, Riley Scott portrays this era as a very gruesome and bloody time. Not many films before this one has attempted to dive into the almost ancient life. There were films, though, such as Spartacus, that resembled this movie but included annoying anachronisms of psychology, according to David Neelan. The main character, Maximus Decimus Meridius, was formerly a commander of the Roman army, but after the Emperor Marcus Aurelius tells his son Commodus that he is going to hand over his powers to Maximus, he goes frantic. To start his frenzy, he kills his father in order to hold the power to himself. With this power, he tries to create his own Rome with the initiative of trying to make people like him, which is uncommon for a successful ruler, which is apparent as the film progresses. With the character of Commodus in charge of the empire, he allows us to be more exposed to the brutal life of Rome. But with this came some faulty history. For instance, during this time, the emperor would never be addressed as sire or my lord. Along with that, at this time there wasn't any emperor, yet there were two consuls who had equal power. With this being said, Rome was formed as a republic rather than a dictatorship. Also, this film depicted 3 years of Rome, but Commodus ruled for 12 years according to Content Master. In addition, an aspect that wasn't shown was Commodus' execution of his sister for trying to assassinate him, thus showing more brutality of Rome. During the beginning of the film, after the Roman battle in Germania, I will focus on the character of Commodus and how his cynical and deceitful character promotes the plot and enhances the characters around him. In the beginning of the film, Gladiator, the Emperor Marcus Aurelius has ruled for quite a long time, is getting too old to rule, and is ready to make his decision to pass his powers onto someone else, which ideally would be his son. But he ends up deciding to pass his powers onto Maximus Decimus Meridius, and not his own son Commodus. He chooses Maximus, a strong, brilliant general of the Roman army, because he contains the 4 virtues that call for a successful ruler, as claimed by Marcus Aurelius: wisdom, temperance, justice, and fortitude, which Commodus does not have. In the beginning, as Marcus Aurelius appears behind his son Commodus, he begins with, "Are you ready to do your duty for Rome?" leading Commodus to believe that he will be emperor. Directly after, he says, "You will not be emperor. I am handing over my powers over to Maximus." This quickly strikes Commodus, bringing tears within his eyes. This makes him start expressing the cynicism within his character. He then avoids his father as he tries to caressing his cheeks. Commodus then states, "I realize that I have none of those virtues, but has ambition, courage, and devotion," thus showing his desire to be emperor. Commodus' reaction to this is somewhat childish, as prior to this, he is shown as a light-hearted person, especially after the battle. After this, though, he becomes stubborn and petty to get what he wants, even if it means going to the extremity of killing his own father. Considering that Maximus loved and admired Marcus Aurelius, this sparks the rivalry between him and Commodus, thus helping the plot grow and intensify. Along with that, by committing this act of patricide, he strips Maximus of his powers and takes them for himself. During their conversation, the camera is positioned to stalk Commodus as it is positioned right behind him. This shows a certain resemblance between the two, foreshadowing a certain comparison. The room is lightly dimmed on one side of the room. As Commodus speaks, he has fast fall-off on his face, with the camera looking up at him. This gives him a certain dominance over his father, who is kneeling down. Since the camera is looking down at Marcus Aurelius, the fall-off is practically unnoticeable, giving him innocence and a sense of security in the eyes of the audience. But with the camera working to show Commodus as dominant, it hints that in this situation, Commodus has more power than his father, despite his position as the Emperor of Rome. In addition, since the location is secluded and concealed from the outside eye and ear, it enhances the instability and uncomfortable position of Marcus Aurelius. In the beginning of the scene, as Commodus enters the room, we hear wind blowing from the curtains. This ghastly sound creates a disturbance in the easiness of the room. In this scene, the non-diegetic music is very subtle and pretty calm, but as the scene progresses, so does the music. In the end, the music ends very loud and glaring, dominating the scene, making it very uncomfortable for the audience. The high volume enhances this scene's importance in the film, establishing it as a turning point. The music seems to match the emotions of Commodus. As he gets more angry, so does the music. When he is strangling his father, the music is the loudest. In the beginning of the scene, the opening shot is panning as Commodus is walking towards the sculpture, and then he touches its face. The sculpture is of his father, which is the emperor. In the beginning, it seems like an admirable figure, but in the end of the scene, the sculpture transforms from an emperor to a tyrant, as the death of Marcus Aurelius puts Commodus as the new emperor. The harsh, pounding music foreshadows the problem and brutality that will come with his rule. The sculpture also has fast fall-off, symbolizing a certain maniacal characteristic in it. The camera here pedestals down, matching the position of Commodus' dominance. This scene ultimately establishes the characteristics of Commodus. Commodus' goal and desire to please his father appeals to the audience, as it is both innocent and understanding. This innocence is also shown throughout to be liked by everyone around him, and this innocence is also shown throughout to be liked, as Commodus wants to be liked by everyone around him and to respect him. Right after this scene, he asks for Maximus' hand once, and is turned down, cementing the bad blood between them. He constantly appeals to the fans at the arena later on in the film, claiming to be merciful, despite the fact that he always sets up what would be expected for Maximus' downfall. On the other hand, his own jealousy torments him, bringing him to become a murderer of not only Marcus Aurelius, but also Maximus' son and wife, influenced Maximus to feel the same hatred for Commodus as Commodus does Maximus. Commodus continually tries to kill Maximus as he becomes a slave of Rome and throws him in the arena, constantly at a disadvantage. Commodus' character also works to bring out the role of his sister, Lucilla. Despite the fact that she is a strong woman, because she is a woman during this time period, she is unable to escape or stand up to her brother and bystands his harsh decisions and acts. Commodus' character drags her onto the side of Maximus, leaving him with nobody and no one to support him. Commodus' conflicting character creates the perfect villain for this movie. He deceives the ones that he loves, but still strives to do good for the people of Rome.